Anakin Skywalker is the Chosen One, which means his abilities in the Force have the potential to surpass anyone in history. But his powers were not fully gained because he entered the Jedi Temple much later than the ordinary Jedi. But what would change if Anakin was found at birth and brought into the Jedi Order like a normal boy would be? The story begins 9 years before the Phantom Menace, on the planet Tatooine, where we find Shmi Skywalker with her newborn baby. She sits there playing with him, entertaining him in any way she can. This child was her entire world. She would have to raise the boy by herself, as there was no father. No one could explain the pregnancy, there just wasn't an answer. Suddenly, the doors to her home burst open as two hooded figures march in. They explain to Shmi that the boy is special and he has been blessed with fantastic gifts that will help the galaxy. It was called the Force. Shmi was very reluctant to give the child up, but what choice did she have? She couldn't do anything, and so the boy was taken that night. Unknown to the Jedi at this time, they had just met the Chosen One, destined to destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force. His name was Anakin Skywalker. Anakin was brought into the Jedi Temple and made a youngling. At first, the Jedi saw lots of potential in Anakin. They took him through the procedures of joining the Order, and he started his lessons with Master Yoda in a room filled with other children. They learned the basics of the Force, lightsabers, and using their abilities to protect others. But everything changed in Anakin's life when the results of his midi-chlorian count came through. His results were off the charts. No one had ever seen a reading like this. At first, they thought it was an error, and so they tested again, only to receive the same results. Anakin possessed more midi-chlorians than even Yoda. It wouldn't be long until the entire Jedi Council deduced that he was the Chosen One. And so he continued training. They kept him with the younglings but also had private sessions for the boy. He picked up different abilities extremely fast. Others in his class were very jealous of his abilities in the Force. For the next 9 years, Anakin would train, becoming the most gifted and talented youngling the Jedi Order had ever seen. All they could do was to continue to pour information of techniques and ideologies into him. After 9 years of training had passed, Anakin was extremely powerful, more powerful than the average 9-year-old could ever be. Completing his time as a youngling and passing the trials, he was made a Padawan. The Council was very selective when it came to this. They needed a Jedi strong and powerful who could balance Skywalker's skill, but also wise and courageous. Qui-Gon Jinn was that Jedi. Obi-Wan had recently passed the trials, and so Qui-Gon was available to train a new Padawan to become a Jedi Knight. Maul had never been revealed to the Jedi, since they didn't meet him on Tatooine. As time passed and Palpatine met Count Dooku, he came up with the plan to keep Maul hidden away from the Jedi until the perfect moment came to reveal him. And so he trained Count Dooku to become his main apprentice, and Maul hid in the shadows, further fueling his rage and anger towards the Jedi. Qui-Gon taught Anakin everything he knew. When you become a Padawan, it's time to specialize in a lightsaber form. Qui-Gon used Form 4 Utaru. This was a very aggressive and powerful lightsaber form, one that the most experienced Jedi members such as Yoda used. But this form would also be perfect for training Anakin, still a young teenager. The form was great for users using their connection to the Force to help supplement their physical skill and power. With Anakin being the Chosen One and the most talented Force user ever, Utaru would be the perfect match for him. And so for the rest of Anakin's teen years, they trained a lot. Going on missions and gaining experience, Anakin truly was a prodigy. His powers had almost tripled under Qui-Gon's training compared to Obi-Wan. In fact, With Qui-Gon's methods, Anakin reached the ability he was at with Obi-Wan when he was 18, when he was only 12 with Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon was the father figure Anakin needed in his life to grow up, not a sibling and brother like Obi-Wan was. Because of this, Anakin had a much better upbringing. The kids his own age stopped picking on him after he became Qui-Gon's apprentice, because of the level of respect Qui-Gon was able to command. Anakin was ambitious, selfless, and overall a nice human being. Some would call him the perfect Padawan learner. He enjoyed going on long walks and adventures with Chancellor Palpatine, who would teach him many different things about the world and flip his whole belief system. Palpatine once posed the story in a way which showed that the Jedi were evil, which fascinated the young Anakin, as he had never seen the Jedi in that way. He continued to train with Qui-Gon until he completed the Padawan trials at 18 years old, becoming a Jedi Knight. This was much faster than the usual Padawan. For some, it would take up to 15 years to become a Jedi Knight, but with Anakin's chosen one genetics and the fact he was trained from birth, Anakin was much more powerful. Anakin would never meet Padme. He would know of her because she was a senator and used to be the Queen of Naboo, but the relationship would never begin, which means Luke and Leia are never born and Palpatine cannot pull on that weakness of Anakin. When the Clone Wars began, Anakin takes on an apprentice of his own, Ahsoka Tano. The Clone Wars are when Anakin really makes a name for himself. He was highly regarded as one of the best generals in the Order. Often, he would be able to defeat the Separatists and liberate worlds from tyranny. Together, the two created a bond so strong that it could never be broken. Anakin trained Ahsoka to the best of his ability. They became more than just simply master and apprentice, but were friends. Friends who were there for each other and never let one another down. When Ahsoka was framed for the bombing on the Jedi Temple, Anakin believed her, and he tried his best to instill this belief in the Council. But all evidence pointed in her direction. Anakin and Ahsoka go to Qui-Gon, the only person they can really trust at this moment. Qui-Gon Jinn was always an outcast to the Jedi. Although he followed their rules, he didn't believe in all of their ideologies. This was the reason he never joined the Jedi Council. He was a master, sure, but a council member he was not. These points of wisdom were something that he would often explain to Anakin during their training. Because of this, Anakin became extremely diverse in the Jedi Order, far more intelligent than he ever was under Obi-Wan's training. Qui-Gon explains to them that they need to find evidence fast, and that they do. Within a day, they were able to track down Barriss Offee and get her to confess to the Republic about her crimes against them. Ahsoka was dropped of all of her charges and instead of leaving the Order, decided to stay. Qui-Gon sat down with her and explained that it was the natural procedure for her to be arrested by the Jedi. It's what they would have done for anyone. Qui-Gon's wisdom in the world aligned with Ahsoka's intelligence, and she agreed to stay, which overjoyed Anakin. Anakin's life was far greater with Qui-Gon and Ahsoka in it. Now we skip to Palpatine revealing his identity to Anakin. Count Dooku and Grievous are dead. This leaves Maul still hidden from the Jedi, but Palpatine pretty much alone. Anakin immediately leaves, saying he's going to turn him over to the Jedi Council. Instead of going to Mace Windu, Anakin tells his master Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon is someone he trusted the most in this galaxy, so he could easily come to him with this news. Although taken back by the news, Qui-Gon begins to think about their options. He tells Anakin that Yoda is about to return from Kashyyyk, and they will all go and confront the Chancellor then. So as Yoda arrives and was informed of the situation, what seemed like 100 Jedi went to the Chancellor's office. All highly trained Jedi Masters. Ahsoka pleaded with her master to let her help, but Anakin said it was far too dangerous and she was to sit this fight out. Although upset, she obeyed her master's request. As the Jedi Masters confronted Palpatine, they told him he was under arrest. Palpatine could see almost a dozen Jedi. He didn't like his odds at all, especially considering Jedi like Yoda, Mace Windu, and Anakin were standing before him. He stood and ignited his lightsaber. There was no other option. Leaping for the Jedi Knights, he began to swing. He targeted the lower ranked Jedi and tried to leave the more powerful ones for last. To do this, he would use his Force powers to separate the good from the bad. Palpatine was a ticking time bomb. A second lightsaber ignited from his sleeve and he attacked even more Jedi at once. Kit Fisto, Aegon Kola and Saesee Tiin, and many more Jedi fell to Palpatine's blade. Everything changed when Palpatine engaged on a one-on-one duel with Windu. Windu kicked Palpatine's lightsaber from his hand and sent him to the floor. Expecting him to wail in defeat and plead for his life, Mace Windu stood triumphant. But for some reason, Palpatine didn't drop his smile. He simply stood back to his feet with all the confidence in the world. The glass window behind him shattered as a figure leaped in. The sound of a crimson lightsaber was heard as Darth Maul removed his hood, revealing himself to the Jedi. Palpatine laughed as he reached out with his hand and called on 2 more lightsabers hidden in random vases in the room. Igniting them both, he rushed at the remaining Jedi. Anakin was much more powerful now. Because he was trained from birth, he could actually keep up with Palpatine. Qui-Gon wasn't as lucky though. In his older age, he became slower and weaker. He couldn't perform as fast and powerful moves as he did in his youth. He tried to keep up, even prioritizing Maul, who seemed to be slower than Palpatine. But it was no use. As Yoda, Anakin, Mace, and Obi-Wan fought Palpatine, Qui-Gon was alone with Maul. Darth Maul was able to gain the upper hand and force Qui-Gon's arms upwards and thrust his lightsaber into his chest. Qui-Gon groaned as he fell to the floor. Anakin screamed and rushed to his master, who took his final breath. Tears flooded Anakin's face as he targeted Maul. Using all of the power that he had learned over the years, Anakin dueled Maul, and he made light work of him. Very quickly, he was able to destroy Maul's lightsaber hilt and stab him through the chest, killing him. Palpatine couldn't handle the combined forces of Yoda and Mace Windu. It was just too much. As Palpatine took one wrong step, he too fell to the blade of a Jedi. Mace dealt the final strike and killed Sidious. Ahsoka runs over to Anakin, who had just entered the room. Anakin was holding his master's body in his arms. Although they had won the day, to Anakin it felt like they had lost. With time, he would learn to accept his master's death and move on after much guidance from the Council. After Palpatine's death, the Republic won the Clone Wars. Bail Organa was made Supreme Chancellor and ordered the cancellation of all clone production, as he felt it caused more problems than having them. Anakin would continue to thrive in the Order, although was very distraught after his master's death. He completed Ahsoka's training, who would eventually go on to become a Jedi Master and train other Padawans in the Order. Yoda would die 2 decades later and have Anakin take up his role of Grand Master of the Jedi Order. With him as the leader, the Jedi would continue onto a new era of peace in the galaxy. Anakin Skywalker would not succumb to any darkness and live a long, happy life. Thank you guys so much for watching today's What If. I felt like Qui-Gon would train Anakin if he could. He really did care for the boy as a father would. If Anakin entered the temple as even a smaller child, their bond would only grow further. In the end, I did think it was right for him to die though. As a human, he would have been reaching an old age, which meant he would be much slower and less powerful. So if he went up against Palpatine and Maul, there was just no way he would survive. I also think that Palpatine would keep Maul hidden for longer. He didn't need Maul to go out into the battlefield and risk his life so that Palpatine could get Anakin. Anakin was already at the Jedi Temple, and right where Palpatine wanted him. He could then manipulate him and do all that, just as he did with his walks and adventures with the boy. But of course, because Anakin doesn't have any past trauma to draw upon, he would be okay and would not fall to the dark side. He never lost his mother, never met Padme, and never had any dreams of losing anyone. Palpatine didn't have that much to play with. I hope you guys enjoyed the story though. I tried to tell Anakin's life right from the beginning, all the way up until the end. If you would like to support the channel, please consider becoming a member. It's 99 cents a month and you get access to a bunch of awesome emojis. We also have a Discord server with the links are in the description below. I hope you all enjoyed, and may the Force be with you.